Okay, I did. Okay, so it should be
Yeah, so in case you missed
recording.
anything and you want to go back to it, it'll be recorded and we'll upload it to our Facebook page.
Yeah. So the first component of the DAT, the dental school application, is the DAT exam, and the DAT exam has four major parts, right? It has the manual dexterity, biology and chemistry, reading comprehension, and the perceptual ability test. You can see the breakdown here. This is a very detailed document. It's 20 pages, and it has so much advice for you guys, but we will be just going over major points. First, we are going to go over the resources that you can use to prepare for the DAT exam. Really, that bootcamp was the resource I use and many of our mentors use as well. It's very representative of the American DAT, not the Canadian one. There are some differences, as you know, but again, you can use the biology and chemistry and the PAT and the reading comprehension, and they are going to be very similar to what you're going to see on the real DAT exam. For the other source is the DAT Crusher, which is a Canadian resource, and it's tailored to the Canadian DAT. So it doesn't have physics, and it's mostly focused on what you're going to see in the Canadian DAT, which is also more comprehensive on the bio. DAT Crusher is a new, relatively new website, so our mentors have different experiences with it, but be prepared to have a sort of new panel, and the website might be laggy as well, but that bootcamp is already pretty well established, especially for PAT section. There are also other resources that you can use to prepare for DAT that we have put here in detail, but mainly you can just Google DAT free exam, and any of the prep companies, you can find the links, for example, for free DAT exam, or even the presentations that they do have for some concepts, particularly PAT, and they can be useful. A big question that we always get asked about the DAT exam is whether you need to take any courses or not. So Princeton Review and Kaplan do have courses, and during COVID time, it's offered online. Really, the courses are there for you to give you a schedule, something to follow. If you're good in taking initiative, and if you're able to sort of have a plan for yourself, you don't really need to take any course. You can just use these resources that are available to you either in your undergrad courses or the ones that we introduced to you, and you should be fine. So really, the general consensus for us is that you do not need to take a course, because first of all, they're very expensive, and also they don't offer much more than what is available publicly. Finally, DAT Destroyer is another resource that we have put here, and you can read more about it, but it's kind of expensive, and it's mostly focused on the biology and chemistry. It has really good questions for those parts, but it's way harder than what you would expect to encounter on the Canadian DAT. So I'd be mindful of that. So some tips for studying: basically, you need to plan ahead, put 2 or 3 months aside, have the last week, which is closest to the date of the exam, as a review week. You want to start preparing for the PAT, which is the perceptual ability test, which, as you know, has its own subcomponents. You want to start for that early, meaning that you want to do every day or every week. You want to do like practice like an hour or maybe 2 hours, so that it's a skill that you will be able to build it up through time, and you can do well. It's not like the PAT part, it's not like the biology or chem that you can just review certain notes before exam and then you will be fine. For the PAT, you need to really practice it through time to build that skill. So some questions that like people ask us as well is that, so how do you study in the summer or while you're taking the full-time course load? So basically in the summer, you can do the most of your studying, but during the year, you can just spend time to do like every week, just review material and sort of go through that. But the key is that you should have a plan. You should know that like in advance, 2 or 3 months each week, probably what you're going to study, so you can stick onto it. So there are also some section-specific tips that we have prepared for you for the DAT exam for biology, chemistry, reading comprehension, and perceptual ability. And again, this document will be shared with you afterwards, and you can just read through them. to sort of get a better idea of how to prepare for that. There are also like certain techniques that people use for the reading comprehension that might help you as well, such as the search and destroy method, which you basically go through the questions first and then go through the passage. And as you come up with certain keywords, you go and answer those questions. And again, as I said, perceptual ability, really the key is you should practice over a long period of time, over a year maybe, and also do it like every day or every week. Have a time set aside for PAT practice. And finally, there are some tips that we have put down for you for what to do the day before the DAT exam, on the morning of the DAT exam, and even like a bit after the DAT exam. But what the idea is that you want to take the very last day before your exam. You want to take that day easy. You don't want to stress yourself unnecessarily on that day. And also tomorrow, the day that you're going to write the test, you want to arrive early on the test center, and also you want to know the place, and you want to have a plan for what you're going to do after the test. So that's all to keep in mind. Again, we have much more details for you here, but I just went through some basic ideas and so that you're familiar with it, but you can go back for reference and read them. So right now, Liz is going through the Casper component of the test for you guys.
Thanks so much, Roosevelt. So the Casper component is a relatively new addition to dental schools, and most medical schools have been using it for a while now. It has 12 sections with 4 written and 8 video prompts, and then you have 5 minutes to answer 3 follow-up questions. So as you can imagine, it's a bit of a high-stress situation because you do have to type your answers quickly. You have to try to avoid any grammar mistakes and make your writing as concise and eloquent as possible. That being said, the invigilators and the graders for the Casper exam have been told to not grade you based on your spelling or grammar as much. So you don't have to stress too much in that regard. Try always to make your writing as thorough as possible and show both sides of the argument. That's something they really appreciate, to see that you can empathize with different people and that you're not quick to jump to any conclusions to any side. Usually they'll try and phrase a question to kind of trick you and guide you towards a certain answer. But before jumping into your answer, try and give substantiated evidence as to why you are going to ultimately come to that conclusion. So we've included a list of resources. The official Casper website is great. It offers free practice tests, and it gives you a simulation you definitely want to do before the day of, because it's basically identical to the test you'll take, and it has really great questions. BMO as well has a list of around 100 free practice questions. They do offer as well a course. And so like Ruzba said, that ultimately is a decision that you'll have to make on your own based on your schedule and if you're looking for any additional tutoring. Personally, I didn't use a tutor, and neither did Ruzbeh or other mentors we spoke with, part of Diversity in Dentistry. But if you are going to join with a tutor or a company, then we recommend asking specific questions, because otherwise you might be paying for someone's time when they're really just going to give you a general breakdown of the Casper. It'd be better to get into the meat of the test. And so some tips for studying are to begin practicing early, but you don't need too much time. Around 2 or 3 weeks should definitely do the trick. And with only 3 questions a day, you'll start getting into the mindset of Casper exam. You can also practice with MMI questions in case you run out of Casper specific questions. MMI questions are usually ethical dilemma type, and that's very similar to what you'll be seeing on Casper. So just practice writing with, you can create your own 3 follow-up questions and write it within the 5 minutes. And we've listed other tips for studying as well. There is a certain method called PPRDJ. It's a mouthful, but if you choose to take this on, you basically target the problem, the perspective, responsibilities that you have, that others have in the scenario, the decision, and you justify your answer. This isn't a rule. You don't have to follow this strategy at all. You can choose whatever feels most comfortable for you in your writing. But it does, again, show that you are compassionate to all sides and that you're really making a thorough and thoughtful decision. And so I'm just going to keep scrolling down. And another strategy is the if and then. That is a really great strategy because you're basically running through all scenarios. Sorry, it's a bit, there we go. So basically what you would say is, if X were to happen, then I would do Y. And you continue listing all the different options you can think of. And it shows that you're a creative thinker, that you're, again, not jumping to any conclusions, and you're considering any possibilities within the example that they provide. And continuing along, there are some tips for the day of. They're pretty general. You want to make sure that your Wi-Fi connection is steady. If you're writing somewhere else in a library or a room, make sure that it's quiet, that you won't be distracted. A tip is that if your Wi-Fi does cut out, that you could have through your cellular data, you could have a hotspot running and you could quickly transfer to that. There's as well an optional break, and I recommend you take it. You can walk around a little bit, do a stretch, use the washroom if you need, and then you can get back into it. As well, Rizba and myself, on behalf of Diversity in Dentistry, will be providing all participants tonight with an additional Casper resource that's actually offered to Canadian medical students. So hopefully you'll find that helpful in your studying for this test. And now Rizba is going to move along with personal statements.
Yes, so speaking of personal statements, University of Toronto has recently put this requirement to write 2 essays. One of them is basically about one of your biggest accomplishments, and the other one is why you are planning to pursue dentistry. So these essays have a page limit, but they do not have a word limit. So basically, you can just email them and ask for a font size, but usually a font 10 to 15 would be fine with like a single space or maybe double space, but you can always check on with them. They haven't said specifically anything about fonting and the spacing. And then there is the University of Western Ontario Dental School requirement that is an essay, like that is part of the application. You not only do a personal statement, but also you do an autobiographical sketch, means that you will be able to list all the achievements that you've done and sort of talk more about them. So basically, again, in the personal statement, we didn't have access to the specific questions or University of Western Ontario, but basically the idea is that you have to talk about the accomplishments that you've had while you're planning to pursue dentistry, and how sort of you came over a significant disadvantage to pursue dentistry, which can be a good point to talk about. But the idea is that really for us, our group, we are sure that you are from a diverse background and you're people who probably have already very unique experiences, and we really want to show that off. Meaning that you want to tell a story of yourself, for instance, for why you're planning to go to dentistry. You want to explain that how you are fitting in, how your passion for dentistry developed, and what qualities and characteristics you've developed through your experiences that will help you to be a better dental clinician. Some qualities that they always look for is things like resilience, empathy, right? Leadership, collaboration, and communication. These are all the things that you can basically talk about them by expressing examples from your own life. So when you're writing about these essays, there are certain things you want to follow. First, you want to always show what you've done or show the quality that you have rather than telling them. Being that you have, for instance, if you want to talk about collaboration, you can talk about one of your experiences where you were a leader in a club, or there was an organization, and how you were involved in it and how you work with other people. You want to paint a picture for people that really shows that you are a collaborator. You don't want to just say that, yes, I already developed a good collaboration skills when I was in my undergrad. So we also, for instance, some of our mentors have said, instead of saying I volunteered, you can say I was given the opportunity to volunteer. You want to elaborate on these words. You don't want to make it very self-centered. You want to talk about the picture, the overall picture, and how everything fits in together to help you go into the dental profession. So we know that personal statements are some things that, for instance, need you to put a lot of time into it, and you have to get constant feedback on it. So later on, we will be pairing you with a mentor who is a dental student, and you can ask specific questions about your personal statements, and they will be more than happy to help you and even give you edits or read over your essays. The next component is shadowing that I would like to talk about. So shadowing, some dental schools require you to do a specific number of hours, but really shadowing is good because it helps you realize whether the field is for you or not. Shadowing can be difficult, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, because dental offices are specifically instructed to keep the number of staff on the minimum. But it's as the things are opening up, we think it would be probably possible for you to find a shadowing, even virtual opportunities. There are virtual dentists right now, meaning that there are services that offer dentistry online, and you can ask a dentist to see if you can view their cases, how they interact, and follow them for a day. So when you're finding a dentist, you want to basically email as many as dentists as you can, and be specific about what you want to do, which is basically shadow. Don't say that you're looking for a dental assistant job or you want to be a volunteer. Specifically mention that you're interested in dentistry and you want to shadow them. When you're going there, always ask questions. So when the dentist is working on, if it is okay during the procedure, or sometimes they specifically tell you to ask questions after the procedure, the idea is that you want to show initiative and you want to know more about the things that are happening. So not only it's good for you, but also you get a better exposure to the profession. So that's always a good thing to keep in mind. And also when going into a dental office, make sure that you ask the patient whether they are okay for you to shadow the dentist while they're working on them or not, because some patients might not be comfortable and you really want to respect their privacy. So there isn't any specific number of hours, but each university has some recommendations. For instance, to the US schools, they say 100 hours minimum are recommended. But really, it differs from one school to another, and we recommend you to check with some schools that you're interested in applying and see what is the general consensus or the requirement for shadowing. And even if they do not require shadowing, shadowing really boosts your application because it shows the admission committee that you know what profession you're getting into. So now we will be moving on to reference letters, which Liz will talk about.
Great. So reference letters is the next step, especially after you have shadowing experience. Asking the dentist that you shadowed is a great opportunity because hopefully they've gotten to know you and your skills, and they've seen that you're really passionate about dentistry. And that's what you want to highlight in your reference letters, that it's a love of yours, a dream you've always had, and something you hope to share with people as your profession in the future. So you could ask a dentist. You could also ask professors that you have a close connection with, past previous employers, etc. And in your letter, as I mentioned, they should include your strengths, your passions, and if they have any unique stories that really highlight when you made a difference or something that demonstrated your responsibility, your maturity, etc. Those are all good things to touch on. As well, you could always prepare a package for them. If you don't know your professor so well, sometimes it's difficult for them to give an accurate reflection on yourself. So you could provide them with your CV, your resume, your cover letter, so that they can take a look, they can see the experiences you have, they can see how you performed in their course, and it'll be evident to them that you really are you really are motivated to pursue dentistry and that you deserve to be there. And so at times, if you're asked to write your own letter, then what that comes down to is doing some research on Google. You can look at some previous examples and try and formulate something that has specific elements of yourself and dentistry and why your strengths align with the profession. And so for the interview, once you have your DAT, your Casper, your shadowing, and your reference letters, hopefully you'll receive an offer to a Canadian university. If you speak with our mentors, we have mentors who have been accepted all over Canada and America, so you can ask us about specific schools. But for University of Toronto and Western Ontario, these are the two schools in our province. So UFT's is MMI, multiple mini interview, that consists of only 3 questions, 10 minutes at each station. So it does put a lot of pressure on those 3 questions, but you just want to be as calm as possible and take it easy, knowing that you can give it your all in each individual station. And at Western Ontario, it's a panel, which means that you'll be speaking with a dentist, a community member, and a senior dental student. What is important is to note is that these interview styles may be subject to change depending on coronavirus. And you have to consider the possibility of doing an online virtual interview. But to prepare, you can use the same resources. So practice the big question, why dentistry? You want to have that down. You want to know what your intrinsic passions and goals are. And as well, you should practice speaking either in front of a mirror if you don't have anyone in person to practice with, but always with friends, with adults, ideally, so you can practice speaking in front of someone a bit older than you and getting more comfortable. As well, something important to note is that Diversity in Dentistry will be hosting mock interviews. We'll be preparing questions beforehand, and we'll be doing an in-person or virtual mock interview for you to participate in, and you'll be able to get a real experience for what it was like for us and what it should be like for you. In terms of how to dress, both women and men, just try to keep it as professional as possible. You don't want anything that draws too much attention to yourself, but stay true to your style, whatever that may be, as long as you're fairly conservative. And what to bring, you don't need to bring much. At U of T, you didn't even need to bring a resume, cover letter, nothing. You just need your proof of identification. If you'd like to have a watch on you, that's great. And an important note is that if you really want to stand out and show that you're respectful and that you have great manners, make sure to knock before entering on the door or the station. Often you forget and you just kind of barge in, but if you do a quick knock, they'll say, yes, come in. You come in, you shake their hands. And then another tip would be to actually ask, if may I take a seat? Can I have a seat, please? And they'll appreciate that. And then they'll say, yes, of course, you can sit down, you can chat a bit, how's your day going? And then you can dive right into the question. We also had a mentor share with us really unique strategies to use in case you're feeling a bit anxious. You do have 2 minutes to read the question outside of the room and think of your answer. And so during that time, you might want to also practice these strategies to hopefully collect your nerves. But again, with as much practice as possible, that's really the way to eliminate the pressure of the day. And you'll find that you're actually enjoying yourself working through those answers and getting to know unique dentists in your community.
All right, thank you, Liz. So right now, the first part of our session is coming to an end, but before we move into the Q&A part, there are two things. First, I'm going to share with you the PDF file right now through the chat, so it gives us the option to do so. And also, you can just go in through the link that we have put in here, and I will also put in the link over here, and then you can give us the specific university that you're going for undergrad right now and whether you want to be paired with a mentor or not. And then based on that, we will be able to pair you with a mentor. But so the deadline for that is August 10th at 7 p.m. It's for you to fill in the form and tell us whether you want to be paired with a mentor or not. But as soon as you can, that would be great. If you go in and fill in the form, it's very simple. Also, there is some Casper resources that that the community of support, which is basically part of our initiative is part of, and it's from the Faculty of Medicine, has prepared a Casper resource folder, which is made of a set of presentation similar to a course where you can go through and really see about the successful people, what they've done for different answers, what they put down, and you can use that information. But also, our initiative is really about pairing you with a mentor throughout this journey, and also as the specific milestones come in during the application cycle, we will be hosting more events as well. For instance, we are hoping to have another big event like this when the interview season comes. And also, if you have like lots of questions about certain thing that we see your mentors are telling us that they're receiving a lot about, then we will be hosting another big event like this, and we will be going through the information together. And also, importantly, we have a guest speaker actually, which is Dr. Isaac. He's an endodontist, and he's also coming from a diverse background, and we're more than happy. We're so excited to have him, and basically that interview will be in the format of a YouTube video. So we will record it, and then we will post it for you on YouTube and also on our Facebook page, and hopefully by that time we will be having our website up and running as well, and then you can access that interview and watch it at any time you prefer, which can be a really good point for you to maybe learn more about path of a successful clinician into dentistry, and also maybe ask for shadowing opportunities. So I'm trying to, so the file right now should be shared with everyone. Can you guys see the file in the chat room? If you can answer. Okay, all right. So we will also send this file in the email once you've finished the form. So the form that we are sharing with you, it's also important that you fill it in. So that form, that link over there. So we will, that's the way that we will see who has attended this session, and also we will send you one more time another copy of this document as well. So
and
now, yeah, and the Casper resources, yes. So I guess now we can open up the floor to questions. So me and Liz were thinking that maybe you can put your questions down here, only questions from now in the chat room, and then Liz will unmute our mentors who are so excited to answer those questions for you guys.
And another option, if you prefer, instead of chat, you can raise your hand through the virtual Zoom feature, and we'll try and unmute you. I'm going to begin by presenting Zoha. She's a fellow classmate of mine entering as a D1 to the University of Toronto. So she'll be answering whoever's has their first question ready. Let's see. Hi, Zoha.
Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well and staying safe.
Great, so. If anyone has a question, feel free to shoot it through the chat box.
So the first question came in. How do you think dentistry makes an impact on people's lives? So Zoha, do you want to jump in?
That sounds like an interview question or like a personal statement question to me. And I don't think that would really help, but I'll try my best. Personally, and again, like everyone has their own point of view, or like their own, what's the word I'm looking for? Like their own intention or aim that they're trying to accomplish through dentistry. For me, like oral health and general health are very interconnected. And I find it really weird that medicine and dentistry so disconnected, considering that problems with your oral microbiome, they actually have an impact on how your health is overall. So the answer is yes to the question that you just mentioned. And I'd be happy to talk more about it at a later point, because that'd be another personal statement response.
Thank you, Zoha. That's awesome.
Thanks so much. So now I'm going to introduce Matthew Rayad. And the question is, how long did you guys study for the DAT? Let's see.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're enjoying your summer as much as possible. So in terms of how long you study for the DAT, I think it will definitely differ from person to person. A lot of the courses you take in undergrad, depending on the program, do overlap with some of the information on the DAT, so that helps to reduce some of your study time. But I think in general, you could probably study for it in about 2 to 3 months, depending on your background, as long as you have like a good study schedule and you commit to it on a daily basis. And you want to especially practice for the PAT and get a good strategy for that right from the beginning, because that's often the section that requires a lot of practice. Whereas with the biology and chemistry, depending on your background, you might be able to get through those a little bit faster. So on average, I would say about 2 to 3 months, if you're committed, would be a decent amount of time to do well.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you, Matthew. Thanks.
The next question seems to be for an upper year student, so I will connect Dorsa. I believe she's a third year at U of T, and the question is, what does a typical day at dental school look like?
Hi guys, I'm Dorsa. I will soon be starting my third year. So this is a bit of a weird question, because I was actually thinking that nobody would want to hear this, because you're mostly interested in like how to get in, how to start. But I guess like it would be, if I had to say like a typical day, Most of the time, dentistry is actually very different from other healthcare professions because we have a lot of practical stuff to do. There's a lot of labs components, which is actually what I enjoy most about it. But everybody is different. Some people mostly enjoy lectures, more seminar type things, because dentistry is very diverse. There's a lot you can do after dental school. You could become like a practicing general dentist, or you could go into more like a medicine pathology direction. But typically, it's a 9 to 5 or sometimes 8 to 5 day. We mostly start with lectures in the morning, then we have more labs in the afternoon, and labs are usually 3 hours long. Well, pre-COVID, it was all of us in one room, which was really fun. We had a lot of fun actually in labs, and that's where we formed our best friendships actually. It sounds intense because it's very, very dense. It's more dense than medicine most of the time, but it also has a component of fun. Like you do a lot of artsy stuff, and sometimes we even stay after school for extra practice, which sounds like a lot, but it really helps you, make your skills just sharper, and you feel more confident in class, which is what it's all about. And yeah, so if if you want me to go into more detail about that or anything like that, I would be happy to talk to any of you guys individually. But that's the basic answer for now.
Thanks so much, Dorsa. The next question seems to be directed towards a U of T applicant. So I will connect you with Sophia, who is now entering into U of T and can hopefully help you. The question is, I know U of T gets rid of your worst year if you have 4 years or more. So I wanted to get rid of my first year, but I also took spring/summer courses in spring/summer. Would they get rid of that too?
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think for U of T, they look at your year from August to August. So 1 year is the summer courses are considered as part of that year. So if you took courses, so let's say your first year was September to May or whatever, and you took courses in that summer, and that's your complete first year, the summer courses would not be included in that GPA if your first year was your worst year and it was dropped. That's what I believe, but I think I would have to double check on that.
Okay, right. And always you can email admissions at universityoftoronto.com, something like that. You can find that email address on their website easily. And if you email the admissions department, they should be able to answer that question specifically for you as well. So the next question is, does University of Toronto require a reference letter? And I'm going to unmute Hartura.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Yes. Yes.
I'm actually applied through the Dsas website, so Dsas. So I don't think that they asked for a letter like if you applied through the U of T application portal, because there are two different portals. One if you choose to apply through the American application website, and one if you choose to apply through U of T itself. I could be wrong, but you could always email the U of T admissions office and ask them. And I do think it's on their website as well if you open up their application form, because you can actually open it up even right now, I believe. But when I had applied, I had to have 3 letters regardless. So that wasn't exactly something that I looked into. But I don't think U of T specifically requires reference letters.
Right.
I do know that there are different requirements for other schools. Like, for example, I think McGill requires reference letters. But again, like the Canadian schools, each all have very different application processes, and you need to go to each of their individual websites to find that type of information.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember something similar. And when I was applying to UBC, they did require a reference letter. So just make sure you check the website, like you mentioned. So thanks so much. The next question is, should we apply directly to school or through a Dsas? And I'm inviting Gayatri.
Hey everyone, can you hear me? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So in terms of applying, it's kind of what the previous speaker said. I applied directly through school. So I applied directly through like U of T and Western, and Western has a portal that you work with, and then U of T, it's just generally like with their contact information and their emails, I believe. But I know last year, I think it was the first year that they included it in the AADSAS. So I'm pretty sure either way is okay. But I would recommend applying just directly to the school because it just makes it easier in terms of like keeping in touch with the admissions committee.
Totally. Yeah. Thanks so much. And the next question says, my question pertains to the new additions of dental school applications. In my situation, my GPA is subpar. However, my undergrad degree is somewhat tougher than a standard pre-dental route, given the course load. Engineering, very commendable. Would you say the additional personal statements would be a route to show you'd be a good fit? So I'm actually going to connect you with a member of a different initiative who is Kevin Zhu. He is entering the University of Western Ontario, and hopefully he'll be able to answer your question.
Hi guys, nice to meet you all. So yeah, if you come from a undergrad background with a slightly more difficult course load, I think it would be a great idea to write that or at least mention that in your supplemental essays. Because with Western, they do put a lot of weight on your personal attributes. So they take your top 2 years in terms of GPA, and then they put a lot of weight on your supplemental essays. So if you can give them reasons for why you're a resilient person and have a lot of effective coping mechanisms for dealing with stress and everything else that dental school can throw at you, then I think that'd be a really strong strategic approach for your application.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much. I think it's definitely worth highlighting. And the next question is, do you have any tips on getting a shadowing opportunity? And I'll connect you with Tiana. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Lazova.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's Tiana. So I think the best way to get a shadowing opportunity would definitely be to contact your general dentist. Most of the time, you're pretty familiar with them as you go on your routinely checkup every, hopefully 6 months. And this way you can kind of mention them that you're really interested in dentistry and really love an opportunity to gain a better understanding of how it is to become a dentist. And most of the time they're more than willing to help you out. But if this is not the case, as it was mentioned in the presentation, it would also be an idea to any dentists that are around your university and maybe see if they will usually, in my experience, they have been pretty easygoing about it. With COVID, of course, it may be more difficult. You would benefit by also contacting a variety of different dentists to get more of an understanding of what your future will look like.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Great answer. And the next question I'll direct as well to a Western University student, Simon. And the question is, for a person who has a slightly lower GPA than what is needed to receive an interview, what is there to do to increase their GPA if they have already graduated, other than starting a new 4-year degree?
Oh yeah, okay, so that can be quite challenging. If you've already graduated, the first thing that comes to mind is do a master's program, but it really depends on the school, as some schools will only give you the benefit of having done a master's program as once you've actually completed it. And it's usually not calculated into, it could be calculated into your GPA, but some schools, I think UBC does, they just give you a flat +2 points to your overall application. So when it comes to trying to improve your GPA, it will be very difficult, but you do have options. You could try just doing a short second degree program. I know I was looking into comp sci, well, the BSc program at UBC, which is only a 2-year degree program, but that can help improve your GPA, and you don't have to do a full 4 years. But yeah, it can be quite challenging. I would focus on seeing what sort of your alternative opportunities are in terms of going to school, and then consider whether or not you want to do a master's.
Great, thank you so much. Next, I'll invite Kajal to answer the question, how did you guys study for the MMI portion? Is it similar to medical MMI, or is it quote unquote easier than med interviews?
Hi everyone. I actually found the MMI portion, like the best way to study for me was to practice with friends. So I would get together with two of my good friends that were also having an interview at U of T at the same time as I was. And we would find questions online, and we would basically test each other. So we put a timer on, and we would try to replicate the entire like time situation that you would get at U of T. So having the 2 minutes to read, and then the 8 minutes to or 7 minutes to answer. And I also went to a mock interview that was offered by my university's human resources. And then I also practiced with a professor that I was close with. And so yeah, I believe practicing yourself and with people is the best, and to time yourself. And then when it comes to being similar to medical MMI, my sister actually went to a couple interviews, and I don't know if I could say that it's easier, but with the med ones, they also have like situational based stations, and with dental, I'm pretty sure most of them you don't, where it's just scenarios. So, and also there's usually less stations with dental compared to med. Like in the States, it's about 8 stations. So I guess technically it's a bit easier, but I'm not 100% sure.
Right. Yeah, definitely at U of T, it's only 3. In my experience at UBC, I had around 10. So it's hit or miss, but as long as you practice, as you said, with friends, I think that's a great way to improve your comfort. The next question is a bit personal, so I'll direct it to Ruzba if you feel comfortable giving a general overview. It's, would it be okay to ask what your GPAs and DAT scores are? I'd like a perspective for UFT.
Yeah, for sure. So my DAT scores are actually kind of low. On the PAT I got 19, and on the rest I got like 20 or a bit above 20. I don't remember. My highest was the reading comprehension, which was I think 23. But yeah, in that range from 19 to 23 max. So, but I think depends on the university. Not all universities have look at DAT in the same way. Some of them look at it just as a cutoff. Like I know U of T is not that very big on the DAT, but certain like American universities, they pay more attention to the DAT exam because it's an standardized exam. For the GPA wise, I would say from what I've heard for this year, in order to get an interview, you should have had a 3.9 above cutoff GPA on a 4.0 scale, and on an AMSAS scale, which is depends on the university that you are, but you have to convert your grades to see what your AMSAS GPA is. But the cutoff has been 3.9 above. But I was right on the dot. So I think I was also just 3.9. Like, I mean, I was just at the cutoff, and I didn't even get into the waitlist. So like I got into the right away. But I mean, the idea is that I think after getting an interview, there will be a big weight on the interview. So the first part is making sure your GPA is good enough and your DAT is 20 above, I would say, like minimum 20 in each part. And then once you pass that, and I mean, the Casper also right now, no one knows how it's graded. So as long as as long as you don't do so bad on it, I think you should be fine. And the essays also, you will see, but the essays, many people have the similar essays too. So that really is comes down to you being able to do well on the interview. So I would say just 3.9 above and 20 or 20 above would be a good target.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. The next question is, how did you all get a reference letter from a professor? And I'll invite Siddiq.
Yeah, hey everyone, to meet you all. So in my situation, the professor who I got my reference letter from was someone who I was working in a lab with. So it was kind of easier to build that connection because I'd already worked for like 2 to 3 years with this professor. So the way I approached to actually get the reference letter was I just sent a quick email asking and telling the professor about my plans for applying to dental school and beyond. And basically, I think the key thing here is that you give your references a little bit of time so that they have the ability to come up with a reference letter or ask you for any resources or whatever. So I think the key thing is for whatever professor you choose to get a reference from, to really try and plan it in advance so that it makes the process easy for you and your professor. And in terms of if you don't have any connections with a professor, I don't think it's ever too late, because perhaps you're taking courses this year, and if you've never connected with a professor before, I think the best way that a lot of people would recommend is you go to the office hours for a class you like or enjoy, and just strike up a conversation over there. And hopefully, once you go regularly and you build up a little bit of a connection, then perhaps by the end of the course, you'll have the confidence to ask them for a reference letter if you don't have any connections at all with a professor right now.
Great, yeah, I agree. I've used those strategies myself, so thanks so much. I'm going to connect with Dorsa again, our upper year student, to answer, how is time management and maintaining a social life during dental school like? Is it drastically different than undergrad?
Okay, so I would say it is different. Because in undergrad, it's actually a bit different in a better way, like in a good way. Because in undergrad, you have a lot of pressure on yourself because you feel like you have to put it, give it your all, get in, make sure you're just managing everything that Roosevelt just explained, Liz just explained, the Casper, referencing, all of that, making sure you have a convincing resume and you have stuff to talk about in your personal statement. During dental school, you don't have that pressure anymore. So like your schedule will be denser. That was actually very surprising to me in first year. I did not expect that. But you also have a lot of more, like you have more freedom to have more like stronger friendships, especially with your classmates. You will become fast friends because you're going through all of this together, like all of the schedule, everything. So you will definitely have a social life if you want one. There's just less pressure than in undergrad. So good things ahead. As soon as you get in, it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of good times.
Great, yeah, definitely something to look forward to. The next question I'll direct towards Argavan. How difficult is it to get into a US school as an out of state? Is it more difficult than getting into a Canadian school?
Yeah, hi everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. So with regards to this question, I would say it really depends on when you apply to US schools. If you apply at the beginning of their application cycle, which should have been like around June-ish, I would say you have a pretty good chance. They're kind of more lenient because they have a lot more spots to fill up. So they truly do get the time to like know you as an applicant versus maybe later on they kind of just like compare all the applicants together and whoever has the highest stats gets it. I'm just kind of like going off of common sense, but I know for a fact that like the earlier you apply, the better chance you have of being seen by the admissions staff. Whereas like Canadian schools, it's like one cutoff, so I guess you're kind of competing with everyone at the same time. But like I guess you're competing with less people because I would assume like there's more students in the US trying to get into dental schools. It kind of depends. Again, it just depends on the timing.
Right, and since US is typically rolling admissions, getting your application early should hopefully give you an advantage. So thank you so much. The next question I'll direct towards Peggy. It's the question says, I'm 22 and going into third year undergrad. My wife and I got married this summer. Congratulations. Of course, I want to get into Canadian schools, but for the high quality of education and to stay close to my family. More than anything, I want to ensure that my wife will be able to work while I'm in school. If we need to move to the US, how would this be possible? It's a big question. Let's see, Peggy, let me know if you can speak and we can hear you.
Okay, hi guys. I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to try my best to answer this question. I'm not too sure exactly. I think there should be at least some visa possibility, or maybe if she finds work in the US. So trying to look into those avenues. If you're looking at American schools, I would say try to broaden your scope to different Canadian schools as well. So there's always the option of going out of province. but I understand. I understand this is a difficult situation for you, and I wish you the best. I think the best thing that you could do right now is to look into different visas that you can find to move to the U.S. with your wife.
Also, I want to add, Liz, that it's possible to sort of like after the first year, if someone gets into the U.S. dental school after first year, they can transfer to U of T if there is opening. I mean, in our class, I know there was an opening, so someone actually was able to get in. So if
Yeah,
you
you
have
can
to
say you
go,
have a marital.
yeah, exactly. So if you have to go into like, if you have to go to US for maybe a year, then you can try to transfer to one of the Canadian dental schools, and it will be much easier because you won't have any interviews. You just apply and you will wait if there is any opening. So
That's a great point. So thank you both. And next I'll invite Kendra to answer the question. If your GPA isn't at least 3.85 for U of T, how do you convince them to see the potential in you through your personal statement? Is your application automatically considered rejected if your GPA isn't that high?
Hi, everyone. So I think on the website, they say that 3.85 is a cutoff, but I'm not sure how strict it is. You can always try to apply or email admissions to see like whether or not that would be acceptable. You can also work on other aspects of your application to make you a stronger candidate. So not just your personal statement, but they look at, I guess, extracurriculars, especially for Western, your shadowing experiences, your, what else is there? Like your DAT scores. For me, my GPA was a bit on the lower side, so I compensated by studying a lot harder for the DAT. And if it's automatically rejected, I'm not too sure about that. Again, you can try emailing admissions, but it doesn't hurt to try applying. Or if you're concerned about your GPA, you can always do either a master's, or if you haven't graduated yet, then you can do a 5th year, because that's what one of my friends did, because she wanted to raise her GPA as well.
Right.
I just have something to add. So U of T has this very pretty unknown essay. It's kind of optional, but it's for extenuating circumstances. So if, for example, something happened in your personal life that caused you to get a lower GPA in 1 year than you otherwise would have had, you could do the essay and kind of explain your circumstances, and then they might be able to provide you with a little adjustment in your score to compensate for that personal event. But usually it has to be something really major in your life. Like, for example, if someone in your family got sick or died, or if you went through something traumatic, something like that. But yeah, so if you have a low GPA, you could try out that essay, and it's not like an automatic rejection.
Great, thank you so much. I'll welcome back Zoha to answer the next question. How do you explain your shadowing experiences in your personal statement?
Yeah, so I had like a section in my personal statement, so I'll just give an example of my U of T essay or the personal statement. So the way I wrote it, I basically had like a theme to each paragraph that I wrote in my personal statement, and I knew like shadowing, even though the U of T application system doesn't require you to have shadowing explicitly, I thought like this is one of the things that should go in my application. So I had a paragraph within my personal statement where I talked about like who I did the shadowing with, so the dentist's name, and I had a footnote as well with their contact information should they require that. And I also talked about like some of the procedures that I had seen. I highlighted some of the interpersonal skills that I learned by just like watching the dentist interact with the patient. So there was a lot of emphasis that I made that these are the skills, in my opinion, through shadowing that I may need as a future dentist. And I backed it up with like other examples of how I have those skills from the other positions or extracurriculars that I've done. So I kind of synthesized it with the experiences that I've had through my extracurricular activities, and made that link with the shadowing or what skills dentists should have based on the shadowing that I did. So that's like a quick rundown of what I did.
Yeah, that's great. And next, I'll ask Matthew to join us in answering the question regarding the essay detailing an accomplishment that U of T requires. Are they looking for a tangible accomplishment, such as an award, or can it also be a personal journey-like accomplishment?
Yeah, so for this question, it doesn't have to necessarily be an award. It could be almost anything. The point of the question is to see why you consider it to be your greatest accomplishment and what you did along the way to achieve that accomplishment. So more than just the accomplishment alone, you're looking at more the path you took to that accomplishment, because that's where most of the learning experience came out. And what they can gain from that is the type of skills you learned, the people you interacted with, and how you can, to some degree, even apply those skills to dentistry. So it doesn't matter whether it's an award or personal journey. It's more about the process you took to get there and what you learned from it and what makes it your greatest accomplishment.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's a unique component and it lets you highlight any experience that you find fit. And so next, we'll answer Jessica's question. How might a master's degree impact one's application? And does a master's type, example, a thesis or course-based matter? So I'll invite Kevin Zhu.
Hi, so master's degrees usually give you like a couple points in addition to whatever your admission score is currently at. So for example, if we had two applicants and one with identical applications and one did a master's degree and completed it versus someone who didn't do a master's degree, then the person who got the degree done would have an advantage in that case. But usually most schools would require that you complete the master's degree. So if it's a course-based master's or a research-based master's, it doesn't really matter as long as the degree is completed when you apply. If you're halfway through the degree, like let's say you just finished first year's, the first year of your master's, you would be in the same boat as basically all the other candidates.
Right, thanks so much. And the next question is similar, and I'll direct it towards Nicole. It says, I've heard if your GPA isn't spectacular, then it may be beneficial to pursue a 1 or 2 year master's degree post-undergrad. I'm wondering if you would agree with this.
Hi there. So the question was to pursue a 1 or 2 year master's degree. And for my personal case, I was actually waitlisted at University of Toronto before I was eventually accepted. My original plan was actually to do that 2 years course-based master's that the University of Toronto did offer. I personally don't see anything wrong with it personally, because the master's itself was a way for me to not only enhance my personal profile because of that extra degree tacked on, but it's always just, it was also a way for me to continue pursuing other interests that you can show further on once you're applying, that to like the interviewer or to whoever is looking over your application. It's also a good way to show that you are someone who has other interests or is a lifelong learner. Those are just some of my 2 cents, I guess.
Lovely. Yeah, thanks so much. So the next question I will ask to Kajal. It says, some of you have applied and gotten accepted to American dental schools. I was wondering, how do you guys afford the cost, since it does cost around $600K plus?
Hi. So I actually didn't apply to any American schools, but again, my sister is actually in a American medical school. And in that situation, she actually was not able to, it was really hard for her to get a line of credit. So instead she got a loan. And the other downside of that is that a lot of Canadian banks don't like to give a big loan for like a Canadian student going to America. So my sister needed a cosigner, which was my dad. And so she kind of screwed me over, because if I didn't get to Canadian school, my dad wouldn't have been able to cosign for me if I were to go to American school. So it really, it's kind of hard to get a like loan or line of credit to go to the States. But if you have someone who has a high income that can co-sign for you, that would be perfect. And I'm actually trying to go back to the question because I kind of forget what it was.
Should I read it out to you? It
Yeah.
says, some of you applied and got accepted to American dental schools, and I was wondering, how do you afford the cost, since it costs around 600K plus?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So then, yeah, it's basically the same because med and dental are both tier 1 professionals. So yeah, as I said, it'd be the same for dental schools. So
exactly. Thanks so much. And Kita, I know your question is similar, so let me know if you feel that it was unanswered. Otherwise, I'll move along to the next.
So, Liz, it's just also it's 7 o'clock. So if anyone wants to leave, it's okay as well. Because you said 6 to 7. But yeah, sorry,
Definitely.
Liz. Yeah.
No worries. We're happy to stay on and answer these last few questions. So Prayag is asking, would a poor first-year GPA affect my admission, even if I have a 3.9 GPA for the next 3 years? So let me invite Sadiq onto this chat.
Yeah, so the question is, would a poor first year GPA affect my admission if I have 3.9 GPA for next year? Yeah, so like we talked about in this session so far, UFT Dentistry at least has this option where they will take off your lowest year. So since it looks like you've done your 4 years, your first year wouldn't really count because you have a 3.9 GPA for the 3 years after. So that would be actually a good thing for you in your situation. And similarly, I know Western, as we talked about before, they only count your 2 best years out of your undergrad degree. So if you were able to get a 3.9 GPA, as you mentioned, then I think you would be solid for that university as well. So I think it wouldn't have an adverse impact as much as you think, because UFT Dentistry does have that policy where they drop your lowest year.
Great, thanks so much. The next question I'll ask to Ruzbeh, because I do know that he was considering both dentistry and medicine. And the question is, what made you ultimately choose dentistry as opposed to medical school? I'm unsure which path to take.
That's a really good question. So I think both of them have advantages and disadvantages. In terms of like, if you're not sure about which part of the body you want to specialize in, then medical school would be definitely the choice because you get the option to explore. But dentistry is already like so focused on one part of the body, which the advantage is you finish schooling sooner. The reason I I decided to dentistry was so I mostly enjoyed like the surgical stuff in the medical science, but I also didn't want to be a general surgeon because I didn't enjoy doing like large scale surgeries. They were like too stressful for me. I realized, and I didn't enjoy it at all. So a smaller scale was like dentistry, which was a fit, and that's like how I went it. And also I think you should apply to both and see which one gives you admission, because it's also a numbers game. Like it's sometimes you might get admission to one school but not the other. Like I have a friend of mine who she didn't get into dental school, but she got interviews in med schools, and she ultimately got waitlisted. So you should apply to both. It never hurts to, like, if you really are unsure, apply to both and see which opportunity you can get.
Great, thanks so much. Tiana, I'll ask you another question. On the AADSAS website, do we have to input our whole transcript manually? I'm hoping you applied to the States and might have some insight.
Hey everyone, so I actually didn't apply to any state schools, so I don't think I'll be able to answer this question.
Okay, no worries. Well, actually I applied to NYU, and I remember having to input my GPA. I had to list every course I've ever taken and the grade, the letter grade. I'm not sure if it's the same for dentistry, but I do know that for the American medical school applications, an A in Canada is considered an A+ there. So that really helps your GPA. Again, I'm not sure if that's the same for dentistry, but yes, I do remember having to input all of my courses and as well mail transcripts directly to the individual schools. Okay, so Ruzbeh, did you apply to the States?
No, I did not. Yeah.
No. Okay. The next question is also geared towards the States or the AADSAD and UFT website. Do they calculate GPAs differently? So I'm going to invite, let's see, Sophia.
So I didn't apply to American schools, but I think they do have a different GPA scale. But I did apply to schools in Quebec, and I think it was the same thing where between an 85 to 100% was considered a 4.0. So the scale was a little bit different. So it did end up helping me out in that sense. So I'm not too sure about American schools, but I know even within Canada, sometimes there's different GPA calculations.
Great, yeah. So it's worth looking into. And next I'll ask Peggy to answer this question. Do you still think it's a good time to go overseas as an international student for dentistry due to the impact of COVID?
So I would say, you know, we're not really sure where COVID is going right now. Things might change next year, or they might be worse, they might be better. I would definitely prioritize trying to apply to schools that are in state, unless you have like a burning desire to go somewhere specifically that's not within your country. I think it would be prudent because depending on like your own situation and how you've been grown up, or like what you need to be emotionally supported, maybe it might be more difficult for you to go somewhere internationally because you might not have that emotional support system that you might have in your own country. I can't really speak too much more about this because I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I would definitely say try your best to get into the place you feel you would do the best at, and the place you feel that you'd be the most emotionally supported.
Definitely, yeah. It's all about having the community of support. The next question, I think, Rizba, you'll be able to answer it well. Is specializing in dental school only for the top students in terms of grades? How competitive is the atmosphere when studying in dental school?
So it's a good question. I think these sort of things are for things after you get into dental school. You don't need to worry about it right now. But just to answer quickly, yes, so your grades do actually matter, but you don't need to be top of your class. As long as you're doing well and above average, I think you should be good. It's more about like the passion and whether you want to go into it or not. And you have to have a CV to back it up. I would say dental school at U of T at least is pretty competitive. At least different people perceive it differently. I would say it's still competitive. You need to study hard, and you need to, if you like, it's hard to get good grades and stuff. So, but don't stress about that part yet. I think right now just focus on getting it. But no, you don't need to be like super top. As long as you're doing well, average or a bit above average, you should be able to like apply. And also it depends on the specialty programs. Like there is 10 of them, so some programs are like harder to get in and some are easier. So it's really,
right.
and it changes from year to year too. So something it's easy right now but like might be harder in the future, or vice versa.
Right. So Argavan, if you could answer this question, would you recommend shadowing other types of dentists besides a general dentist?
Yeah, so I think the primary answer would be like based on your own interests. Definitely explore all the avenues, especially if like you are set on maybe specializing in the future, like maybe even just finding out what dentistry has to offer like outside of that preconceived notion of like just, you know, doing fillings or whatever. I don't think that Canadian schools are too picky on like what your shadowing experience was, like for the schools that require shadowing experience. I don't think that they, you know, think that, oh, a shadowing experience with an endodontist is like more superior than one with a general dentist or anything like that. I'm not sure about the States. I wouldn't think that they would care too much about it. So I would say primarily just base it off of your own interests and like your own curiosity. And I do think that it is, if you have the chance to do it, it would be a really good experience, because why not just like get the most comprehensive insight on all of it, right?
Exactly. It's always good to make connections. So if you have multiple dentists who are willing to take you on, I say go for it. And if you're considering applying to the States, I actually think they do prefer you shadow a general dentist because you're applying to their general dentistry program. And then should you choose to specialize, that would be something to consider once you're in their accepted program. So Hartirat, I hope you can answer the question, how heavily do they weigh the Casper exam?
Sorry, I don't exactly know how the different schools weigh it. I believe McMaster, for example, takes much higher consideration to their Casper scores because if you know that they are the school that actually invented it. So again, I would look into the different schools that you're applying to, and this is definitely something that you can email the individual's admissions offices about. Another resource that I highly recommend that you guys look at is every school usually actually has like an FAQ page on their Faculty of Dentistry website when you're applying to the undergrad programs. As far as for U of T, I'm not 100% sure, like they didn't really tell me, but I believe that they were just looking at it as sort of like a cutoff thing, like if you did decent on your Casper or not. I don't think that they were looking for stellar scores per se, but I think, at least I know for the med school situation at McMaster, they care more about your Casper scores than other schools would. So it really depends on where you're applying. Sorry, I couldn't give you a more specific answer to that question.
No worries, yeah. No one's really in the know for the specifics of how they accept you, but the next question is for Simon. When do you recommend writing the DAT? Should I take a gap year after graduating and do the DAT, then apply? It's kind of hard writing it in the prime midterm season while taking a full course load.
Yeah, so the question is about the DAT and when you have time to do it. I would really look into how comfortable you would be. I wrote the DAT after I graduated. I knew I wanted to take 1 year off to be able to work and actually get some work experience because I'm very, very poor, and dental school is going to make me even more poor. But yeah, so I took it after I graduated, and it was nice because all that information that I was learning in school, the microbiome, the bio was just fresh in my mind. So that was nice. But in terms of if you're taking the courses at the same time, it might be helpful because a lot of the content is quite similar to what you're actually studying in your classes. But yeah, if you're feeling too stressed because of midterms, then I wouldn't want to stress you even further and do it during prime midterm season. But if you're taking a very light course load in terms of like fall, then I would say go ahead. There's nothing wrong with taking the DAT multiple times. It's not the cheapest of tests, but if you're uncomfortable with how you did the first time, it's always available for you to do it again.
That's right. Yeah, great. And so Kendra, I'll ask you the question that's related to the current situation of the pandemic. Alicia says she's reached out to a few dentists near her, and they've said that due to COVID-19, they're limiting personnel in the office and have refused to let her shadow. She doesn't have any shadowing hours, so she's not sure what to do in this situation. If you have any advice.
Hi. So it's really hard to say because the whole COVID situation is pretty uncertain, and we're not sure when they will ease those guidelines for dental offices. I did see that Simon commented on your question as well. Basically, I would keep contacting the offices and just follow up with them, see if they would be willing in the future. Also, depending on like where you're at in your undergrad, you might be able to do it a different year when COVID calms down a bit, possibly. Like if you're not in a rush, then it might be okay to just wait it out a bit.
Right.
But yeah, it's hard to say right now because it's so uncertain.
Yeah, that's right. And maybe if you could find certain initiatives, organizations that are related to healthcare at least, that you could volunteer for remotely, that could be something to talk about. I think they will be more considerate though due to this situation, and it was really unprecedented. The next question seems to be directed towards myself from Kita. If the MMI questions were similar between UBC and U of T, the general answer is no. U of T, I had experienced like basically 2 or 3 sentences in the question stem. Whereas at UBC, it was like a paragraph long, and there was lots of detail about the specific person and the situation. It seemed as if UBC was trying to get you to analyze everything they were throwing at you and pick it apart to really find the important details and what you didn't need to focus on so much. What was similar between the two schools is that they're MMI scenarios, so there's not much talking back necessarily at UBC. In fact, when you're answering a question, they actually have no follow-up questions for you. So filling up that time is kind of intimidating. I think it's best not to ramble and to make your answer more concise. And if you do have to sit in an awkward silence, then so be it. But as long as you feel that you've given a comprehensive answer, I think that's better than belaboring the point. Whereas at U of T, there are many responses that you'll receive from your interviewer. So they'll ask you follow-up questions, and ideally you should actually cut your response shorter for U of T so that they have time to answer those, to ask you those questions, and so you can respond, because that's also a great opportunity for you to start speaking with the interviewer in a bit more of a relaxed environment, because the questions are less formal perhaps, and so you can start getting a feel for the interviewer and showing them who you are. But in general, practice with MMI ethical questions, and you should be good to go for both schools. Okay. So Alicia is asking, is having no shadowing hours, would that really hurt your application? And I'll ask Matthew to speak on that.
So Liz, maybe that can be also our last question, because people are texting me that they want to leave. So
sounds good.
I guess we are going 20 minutes over, but so if you have more questions, I'm seeing that many of them already people are answering in the chat. Well, feel free to email us in the mailbox that I will put in after the last question. And for sure, we'll make sure that they will get answered, maybe in another document that will be shared with you guys. And more importantly, we will be pairing you with a mentor very soon, where you can ask all the questions as well. So perfect. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so next.
No worries. So Matthew, if you could speak on that.
Yeah, so this actually works perfectly, because I think I only had about 4 or 5 shadowing hours when I applied. And really for U of T, there's no particular question asking you about your dentistry shadowing hours. But I did make that 4 or 5 hours that I had like a very meaningful experience. And I even used my routine dental appointments as an opportunity to learn and ask questions from my dentist. So that also gave me additional information about the field and helped develop my interest. So you can always do that if you are strapped for time. And in the case of Western, they do have a specific question. And in my case, because I was so busy with both my master's and other volunteer extracurricular activities, I just explained that, and it didn't really impact my ability to get interviews and offers.
That's right.
All right. So I just also shared the form one more time, and also the document, which I think should also answer your question. So Liz, if you have anything you want to add.
Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to take a look at the document. It was prepared by mentors who are students of U of T and Western, and it's very detailed. Hopefully it'll answer some of your questions, but as well, make sure to fill out their form like Ruzba said, and we'll pair you with a mentor who can sort of guide you through the process of dental school and make it accessible for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And also this meeting will be is recording actually right now, and will be shared with you later on our YouTube channel, so you can access it later on and watch any certain parts. Yeah, so thank you so much. Yeah.
Have a great night, everyone.
You too.